In 1144, Zengi, a Turkish lord who ruled Mosul and Aleppo, conquered the Crusader-held city of Edessa, capital of the first Crusader state ever organized in the Levant. The news reverberated through Christian Europe, and Pope Eugenius III proclaimed a crusade to aid the Christian states in the Holy Land. The organizing force behind the Pope's effort was Saint Bernard of Clairvaux, whose preaching convinced Louis VII of France and Conrad III of Germany to lead the war effort in Syria. However, when Saint Bernard attended a meeting in Frankfurt, he found the local Saxon knights requesting that the crusade be extended to the eastern frontier of their own lands, where dwelt non-Christian tribes. Bernard consulted with Pope Eugenius, who on April 13, 1147, issued the bull Divina Dispensatione, authorizing the Christian nobles of Northern Europe to wage crusade against the pagan Wends. Participants in this war could win the same indulgence extended to knights traveling to Jerusalem. Thus, St. Bernard's great campaign, the famous Second Crusade, would include multiple fronts. This was the first time that Christendom's northern frontier was sanctioned as a theater of crusade. The Pope appointed Bishop Anselm of Havelberg as his representative in the Wendish Crusade. While the campaign in the Holy Land would be concerned primarily with defending and bolstering the imperiled Kingdom of Jerusalem, St. Bernard envisioned this northern campaign as oriented toward the conversion of the Wends. Indeed, the Christianization of various pagan groups would come to be a defining characteristic of the Northern Crusades. For the Danish, Saxon, and Polish noblemen who responded to Bernard's call, the Crusades' target region coincided with their own territorial ambitions. They all had prior experience warring with the region's pagan peoples. Yet now, the Church had extended her blessing, and spiritual rewards would come right along with captured wealth and lands. As the Christian armies organized the coming campaign, the Wendish prince, Niclot of the Abatrites, made a sudden attack on new Christian settlements at the port of Lübeck in Wagria in June of 1147. Unlike his predecessor, who'd taken a softer stance toward Christian missionaries, Niclot was defiantly committed to his traditional religion. His attack only hardened the resolve of the Crusaders, encouraging them to bury any differences that might sow discord in their ranks. Canute V and Sven III were competitors for the Danish crown, but they shelved this conflict for now and combined forces. Archbishop Adalbero of Bremen joined them, along with the famed warrior Duke Henry the Lion of Saxony. For Duke Henry, the crusade had important political ramifications, allowing him to assert his own leading role in the push eastward. Archbishop Adalbero and Henry the Lion struck at Niclot's new outpost of Dauben, while another Saxon force under Bishop Anselm departed Magdeburg and attacked the fortress of Demmin. Niclot showed himself a savvy opponent. He could afford to allow the Saxons to busy themselves attacking Dauben, which was remote and surrounded by water. Meanwhile, a Danish fleet was advancing in Wismar Bay. Niclot had his allies, the Rugians, harass the Danes by sea, while a Danish land force was assaulted suddenly by a sally of Slavic troops from Dauben, using a route which cut them off from the besieging Saxon force. Niclot's strategy worked, for the two Danish kings soon decided that the effort wasn't worth it, and so withdrew to continue their civil war back in Denmark. Henry the Lion and the archbishop continued to attack Dauben until the garrison agreed to accept baptism. Some of the Saxon knights wanted to plunder the countryside, but their leaders refused to allow it, famously saying, "Is not the land we are devastating our land, and the people we are fighting our people?" Meanwhile, the army under Bishop Anselm attacked Malco, where they burned a pagan temple. Hostilities ended when Prince Niclot agreed to pay tribute, and freedom was obtained for a number of Christian slaves. Henry the Lion and the Saxon forces agreed to withdraw. With that, the Wendish Crusade came to an end. In terms of St. Bernard's spiritual goals for the enterprise, the Wendish Crusade was certainly a failure. Apart from burning a temple and obtaining insincere baptisms from the garrison of Dauben, the Christians made no religious impact on the Wends. Niclot's people continued with their traditional religion. The campaign succeeded in winning no new territorial conquests for Christendom. Niclot, as a pagan ruler, remained in control of the Abatrites east of Lübeck. However, when viewed not as a crusade, but as a strictly military enterprise, it was not a bad showing for a season's raid. It secured Saxon control of Wagria and Palabia, and forced a submission out of princely Clobe. Loot was taken and captives were freed. It was also a strong and united show of force from Christendom. Like most crusades, it featured the cooperation of several Christian powers, and though the Danes, Saxons, and Poles weren't always the easiest of allies, they nevertheless acted with unity of purpose. Perhaps it wasn't a coincidence that the year after the Wendish Crusade, the recently converted Pomeranian Prince Radibor traveled to Germany to publicly reaffirm his Christian faith.